Captain Jin Park had been stationed at mining platform New Busan for 3 years, but he had never seen anything like the ship that appeared on his screens that morning. The vessel looked like it was made of living crystal, its surfaces catching the light from the nearby star and throwing it back in colors that had no names. It was beautiful in a way that made him uncomfortable. "Sir, we're getting a transmission," said Communications Officer Da Kim from her station. She was young, barely 25, and her hands were shaking slightly as she worked the controls. "They're speaking perfect standard, but the voice sounds ... wrong." Jin walked over to her station. "Wrong how?" "No emotion at all. Like a computer, trying to sound human." Da Kim looked up at him with worried eyes. "They're asking for permission to set up some kind of research station in our space." Jin felt his stomach tighten. First contact with alien life was supposed to happen through official channels, with diplomats and scientists, not at a remote mining station with a crew of 20 people. What exactly did they say? Da Kim played back the recording. The voice that came through the speakers was indeed perfect standard, but it felt cold and empty. "Greetings, human facility. We are the Zealothi. We request coordinates for establishing a research outpost in this system. Your species presents interesting biological data that requires study." "Biological data," Jin muttered. "That doesn't sound good. Send them back our standard first contact protocols. Tell them they need to contact Earth Command and go through proper diplomatic channels." Da Kim worked at her console for several minutes, then looked up with confusion. "Sir," they responded immediately. "They said our emotional responses are irrelevant to their scientific pursuits. They want to proceed regardless of our concerns." Jin stared at the alien ship on the main screen. It was just sitting there, waiting, like a predator watching prey. "Send another message. Make it clear this is human territory, and they don't have permission to be here." The response came back even faster this time. The same empty voice said, "Your territorial concepts are based on emotional attachments to space. We do not recognize such inefficient claims. We will establish our research station as planned." Other crew members had gathered around the communications station now. Engineer K.O. Sam whistled low. "They're really not listening, are they?" "No," Jin said grimly. "They're not." 3 days later, a smaller Zealothi vessel approached New Busan directly. Jin met them in the main docking bay, along with Security Chief Yunha and Dr. Li Na, the station's medical officer. When the airlock opened, Jin got his first real look at an alien. The being that stepped through was tall and thin, with skin that looked like pale blue ice. Its head was larger than a human's, with no hair, and its eyes were completely black. No whites, no pupils, just dark, empty circles. It moved with precise mechanical steps. "I am Vextar of the Zealothi Research Division," it said in that same emotionless voice. "You are the facility administrator." It wasn't a question. Jin stepped forward. "Captain Jin Park, this is human space, and you don't have permission to be here." Vextar tilted its head in a way that reminded Jin of a bird studying an insect. "Your species displays curious chemical reactions when exposed to concepts of territory and authority. We observe elevated heart rate, increased respiration, muscle tension. Fascinating." "We're not specimens," Yunha said angrily. "We're people. You are biological entities with complex emotional responses," Vextar replied. "We will study these responses to better understand primitive species development." Jin felt heat rising in his chest. "Primitive? We're the ones who built faster than light travel. We're the ones who colonized dozens of worlds. Technology can be copied or stolen. Your emotional volatility suggests underdeveloped mental processes. Observe, your anger increases as I speak. Your biochemistry is flooding with stress hormones. These reactions will subside as your system normalizes." Dr. Lina stepped forward. "That's not how emotions work. We're not malfunctioning machines." "Incorrect. Emotion is a biological inefficiency. Logic indicates you will adapt to our presence and cease these protests within several cycles. Jin clenched his fists. This is our space. You can't just take what you want. We can, and we will. Your emotional distress is temporary. You will forget this interaction as your chemistry returns to baseline levels. Vexstar turned to leave. We begin construction of our research facility tomorrow. Wait, Jin called out. We're warning you, stay out of human space. Vexstar paused. At the airlock. Warnings are emotional expressions designed to influence behavior through fear. We do not experience fear. Your threats are meaningless. After the aliens left, Jin immediately contacted Earth Command. Admiral Min-O's weathered face appeared on the screen within hours. They're really that dismissive? The Admiral asked after. Jin finished his report. Completely. They think we're animals that get upset and then calm down. They don't understand that we remember, that we care about things. Admiral Min-O was quiet for a long moment. Keep monitoring their activities. Document everything they do. Something tells me they're about to learn a very hard lesson about human nature. Sir, they think our emotions make us weak. They're about to discover that our emotions, especially our anger, make us the most dangerous species in the galaxy. 3 weeks after the Zealothi built their research station, people started vanishing. Lieutenant Bo Yoon burst into Captain Jin Park's office at New Busan, with a datapad clutched in her trembling hands. Her usually calm face was pale with worry. Sir, we have a problem. A big one. She set the pad on his desk. 12 people are missing from the outer mining settlements. They were all taken during their sleep cycles. Jin looked at the list of names: miners, engineers, a few families with children, good people who had come to the frontier to build a new life. Any signs of struggle? Equipment damage? That's the strange part, Bo said, sitting down heavily. No violence at all. The security cameras just show them walking calmly to the transport pads, like they were sleepwalking. Then they disappear. Jin's blood ran cold. He knew exactly who was responsible. He opened a communication channel to the Zealothi research station. Vexstar's emotionless face appeared on the screen within minutes. Captain Park, you appear distressed. Your heart rate is elevated. Where are our people? Jin demanded. The human specimens are safely contained in our research facility. We require test subjects to understand your species' biological responses to various stimuli. They are unharmed and serving the advancement of science. Jin stood up so fast his chair fell backwards. Test subjects. These are people with families, with lives. They are biological entities, with interesting neural patterns. We are studying their emotional responses to separation from their social groups. Return them immediately. Vexstar tilted his head in that disturbing bird-like way. Your emotional spike indicates severe distress. However, logic suggests you will adapt to this new paradigm within several cycles. Your biochemistry will normalize. This isn't some chemical reaction, Jin shouted. You kidnapped our people. Kidnapping implies ownership of other biological entities. Your emotional attachment to these specimens is inefficient. You will forget them as your system stabilizes. The communication ended abruptly. Within days, reports flooded in from across human space. The pattern was always the same. Zealothi ships would appear near human settlements, somehow override people's free will, and take them away. The aliens always gave the same response. They needed test subjects. Humans would adapt. Emotions were temporary. Settlement Administrator Wu Jin from the agricultural colony New Genju sent a desperate message. They took 30 of our farmers last night. When we demanded their return, they said our anger was just a chemical imbalance that would fade. They don't understand that we care about these people. They think we'll just forget and move on. The situation grew worse when Captain Cho Min, of the colony ship Inchin, decided to take direct action. His ship was transporting 500 families to a new settlement when a Zealoty vessel intercepted them. "Unknown alien vessel, you are blocking our course," Cho Min broadcast. "Move aside immediately." The Zealoty response was predictable. "We require additional specimens for behavioral studies. Prepare to transfer 50 adult humans." "Absolutely not. These are families under my protection. Your emotional attachment is noted, but irrelevant. Compliance is expected." Cho Min made a decision that would be remembered across human space. All hands, battle stations. We're not giving them a single person. The Incheon was a colony ship, not a warship, but Cho Min positioned it directly between the Zealoty vessel and the hyperspace jump point. For 3 tense hours, the two ships faced each other. Then the Zealoty struck. It wasn't violent in the way humans understood violence. There were no explosions, no screaming metal. The alien ship simply sent out some kind of energy pulse that shut down every system on the Incheon. Life support, engines, communications, everything went dark. When the systems came back online an hour later, the Zealoty ship was gone. So were 50 people from the passenger deck. Security Chief Park Young found the missing people's quarters empty, with no signs of struggle. The victims had simply walked calmly to the transport bay and vanished. Their families were left behind, crying and confused. "They took them like cattle," Cho Min reported to Earth Command. "No violence, no threats, just clinical efficiency." When I demanded an explanation, they said our emotional distress would fade once we accepted the logic of the situation. Jin watched the reports pile up on his desk. Every day brought new disappearances, new violations. The Zealoty seemed genuinely puzzled by human resistance. They acted like they were collecting samples of interesting rocks, not destroying families and communities. During an emergency communication with Admiral Minnow, Jin finally put his frustration into words. "They don't understand us at all, sir. They think we're animals that get upset and then forget. They expect us to just accept that they can take our people whenever they want." Admiral Minnow's face was stone cold on the screen. "They're treating us like we have no memory, no bonds with each other. Like we're just biological machines that reset after each emotional episode. What do we do, sir? Start documenting everything. Every abduction, every violation, every dismissive response. Get statements from the families. Record their dismissive communications. Map their activities." The Admiral's voice carried an edge that made Jin straighten in his chair. Humanity has a long memory when it comes to injustice. They think our emotions make us weak and forgetful. They're about to learn that human emotion, especially human anger, never forgets. Jin began to understand that something was building across human space. Something the Zealoty couldn't possibly comprehend. New Andun was supposed to be humanity's shining example of what they could build among the stars. 40,000 people had made their home on the fertile world, growing crops that fed dozens of other colonies. Children played in parks while their parents worked in fields of golden grain that stretched to the horizon. Colony. Governor Wanli was in his office reviewing harvest reports when the Zealoty fleet appeared in orbit. Not one ship this time, but 12 massive vessels that blotted out the sun. "Sir, we're getting a transmission," said his aide, Ji-Soo, her voice tight with fear. The message was delivered in the same emotionless tone humans had come to dread. "Human settlement. You will prepare for immediate relocation. Your biological specimens and agricultural resources will be transferred to our research facilities. Compliance is expected." Wan Li opened a channel to every settlement on the planet. "This is Governor Li. All residents, implement emergency protocols immediately. Get to the underground shelters now." But it was already too late. The Zealoty began their work with surgical precision. Strange beams descended from their ships, and people throughout the colony simply stopped what they were doing and walked calmly toward collection points. Farmers left their tools in the fields. Teachers abandoned their classrooms. Parents left their crying children behind as they marched like sleepwalkers to the transport areas. 1. Lee tried desperately to contact Earth Command as chaos erupted around him. They're not negotiating. They're not listening. They're treating us like livestock to be relocated. The people aren't fighting back. It's like they can't control their own bodies. If anyone receives this message, tell Earth that The transmission cut to static as Zealoty forces reached the government center. 2 days later, Captain Ra Choi of the cruiser Soul's Pride led the human rescue fleet into the new system. What they found would haunt humanity forever. The planet was a wasteland. Where golden fields had once waved in the breeze, the Zealoty had strip-mined the fertile topsoil, leaving behind empty craters. The cities were dark and silent. Even the orbital stations had been dismantled and carried away. "Sir, we're picking up some life signs," reported Scanner Officer Yuhan. "Underground bunkers, scattered across the planet." Ra Choi led the landing teams personally. In the ruins of what had been Nuandon's main city, they found a school playground. Swings moved gently in the wind, and children's toys lay scattered. In the dirt where they had been dropped, Ra picked up a small stuffed bear, its fur dirty but still soft. "They took them all," she whispered. The first survivor they found was a park, hiding in a basement with her 8-year-old daughter so young. The little girl had a broken arm and wouldn't stop crying. A's eyes were empty with shock. "How many?" Ra asked gently. "Everyone," A whispered. 40,000 people. They walked out of their homes like they were in a dream. "My husband, my neighbors, my son." Her voice broke. "I only escaped because I was in the basement when it started." So Young fell down the stairs trying to follow her father. "What did they say? The aliens?" A's hands shook as she held her daughter closer. "Their commander came to our district. We begged him to stop. We cried and pleaded and showed him our children. He just stood there watching us like we were insects. Then he said it was the most efficient resource reallocation. When we kept begging, he said our emotional distress would fade once we accepted the logic of the situation." Other survivors told the same story. The Zealoty had harvested humans and resources with the same clinical efficiency. They showed no anger, no cruelty, just the systematic collection of useful materials. When families tried to stay together, the aliens separated them like sorting different types of crops. Farmer Kongdu had watched from his hidden storm shelter as the aliens loaded his neighbors onto transport ships. They took the healthy adults first, then the children. They left behind the elderly and sick, like they were defective products. When old Mrs. Lim asked about her grandson, the aliens said emotional attachments were inefficient and would be forgotten in time. Rachoy documented everything, every testimony, every image of the devastated world, every detail of Zealoty efficiency. She sent continuous reports to Earth Command as her teams searched for more survivors. The response from human space was unlike anything in recorded history. As news of Nu Andong spread to every human world, something changed. There was no panic, no desperate calls for negotiation. Instead, a cold silence fell across human space. Admiral Minnow's address was broadcast simultaneously to every human colony, every ship, every settlement. For months, we have tried to reason with the Zealoty. We have followed diplomatic protocols. We have appealed to their logic. We have shown them mercy. They have never shown us. The Admiral's voice grew harder. They have shown us exactly what they think of humanity. We are livestock to them. Our families are specimens. Our children are resources to be harvested. Our love for each other is an inefficiency to be corrected. A pause. Then, they think our anger is a weakness. They believe our emotions make us primitive. They expect us to forget and move on like animals. His voice became deadly quiet. They're about to discover that human anger, when justified, is not a weakness. It's our greatest strength. Across human space, colonies that had been isolated by distance and politics suddenly found common purpose. Mining ships were retrofitted with weapons. Merchant vessels loaded with supplies headed toward rally points. Every human who could hold a weapon or pilot a ship began to move. The Zealothi had finally shown humanity what they truly were, and humanity was preparing to respond in kind. The first sign that something had changed came from the Outer Rim territories. Ships that had been scattered across dozens of star systems suddenly changed course, all heading toward the same destination. Mining vessels, cargo haulers, passenger transports, everything that could fly was moving toward New Andong space. Vexstar watched the sensor readings from his research station with growing confusion. This behavior exceeds all logical parameters, he reported to the Zealothi High Council. Human vessels are abandoning profitable trade routes and defensive positions. They are expending fuel reserves at unsustainable rates. Perhaps they are evacuating the area, suggested council member Zethra. Fear responses often produce irrational mass movements. Negative. They are converging, not dispersing. Ships are being retrofitted with weapons systems. Even civilian vessels are mounting armaments. The first human fleet arrived 3 days later. It was unlike anything the Zealothi had ever encountered. Massive military dreadnoughts flew alongside converted mining ships. Luxury passenger liners bristled with hastily installed missile pods. Even small personal craft had joined the formation, their hulls painted with messages like, "Remember New Andong," and "For the 40,000. Captain Na Young commanded the lead vessel, a converted cargo hauler called the Busan Hammer. Before the war, she had transported grain between colonies. Now her cargo holds were filled with ammunition, and her crew was made up of farmers and merchants who had never fired a weapon in anger. Unknown human vessels, you will withdraw from this system immediately, came the Zealothi transmission. Your presence interferes with ongoing research operations. Na Young's response was broadcast on all frequencies. We're here for our people. Return them now, and we might let you live. Your emotional distress is noted but irrelevant. These biological specimens are required for scientific advancement. Your anger will subside within several cycles. Our anger is just getting started. The battle should have been a Zealothi victory. Their ships were faster, their weapons more advanced, their tactics refined over centuries of conquest. But humans fought like nothing the aliens had ever seen. When the mining ship Gangwon lost its main engines, Captain Lim Jae didn't retreat. Instead, he used the ships or processing lasers to carve through a Zealothi frigate's hull. When his weapons overheated and failed, he rammed his massive vessel directly into the alien command ship. The Zealothi watched in shock as human crews continued fighting even when their ships were crippled. Engineers stayed at their posts as hull breaches vented atmosphere into space. Gunners kept firing until their weapons exploded. Every human seemed willing to die rather than give up. Captain Suhan's corvette Daegu exemplified human determination. Her small ship had been built for reconnaissance, not combat. But she had volunteered for the most dangerous mission, attacking the Zealothi research station where the New Andong survivors were being held. The Daegu took heavy damage approaching the station. Life support failed, filling the bridge with smoke and sparks. The weapons systems went offline, leaving the ship defenseless. Any rational commander would have retreated. Instead, Suhan sealed her helmet and ordered full power to the engines. "Captain, we can't fight without weapons," her pilot said over the com. "We still have the ship," Suhan replied. "Set course for the Zealothi command vessel. Ramming speed." "Ma'am, that's suicide." "No, that's justice. For New Andong, the day struck the alien ship like a missile, tearing through its crystalline hull and exploding in a brilliant flash. The Zealothi command ship listed and began to burn. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Humans turned their ships into weapons when their weapons failed. They used mining equipment to cut through alien hulls. They fought with a fury that ignored logic, tactics, and self-preservation. Vextar's reports to the High Council grew increasingly desperate. Their response defies all behavioral models. They are not seeking strategic advantage or territorial gain. They appear motivated solely by emotional satisfaction. "Surely their resources will be exhausted soon," replied Council Member Keithan. "No species can maintain this level of irrational behavior indefinitely." But the humans kept coming. More ships arrived every day, converted freighters from the core worlds, patrol boats from the frontier, even luxury yachts piloted by wealthy colonists who had abandoned their comfortable lives to join the fight. The Zelethi began to retreat, pulling back from their forward research stations, but the humans followed relentlessly, hunting down every alien outpost with systematic efficiency. They had learned something from their enemies: how to channel emotion into logical, methodical destruction. "They are not stopping," Vextar reported, as another research facility fell to human attack. "We have offered negotiations. We have attempted to explain the scientific value of our work. They ignore all attempts at communication. What do they want? Complete accountability for every human taken. They demand the return of all specimens and the destruction of all research data. When we explain that many subjects have been consumed by experiments, they respond with increased aggression." The High Council's emergency session lasted only minutes. "All forces will withdraw to the home world. Surely they will exhaust their emotional response before reaching our core systems." Vextar looked at his sensors, showing dozens of human fleets converging from every direction. "I do not believe they will stop, Council. Their anger appears to be growing stronger, not weaker." But the order was given, and the Zelethi fleet began its long retreat toward home, pursued by an enemy that fought not for territory or resources, but for something the aliens could never understand: justice for their dead. 6 months after the destruction of New Andon, the largest fleet in galactic history arrived at the Zelethi homeworld. Admiral Minnow stood on the bridge of his flagship, United Earth, watching the sensors count incoming ships. 2,000 vessels had made the journey across the galaxy. Military battleships flew alongside converted cargo haulers. Luxury passenger liners bristled with weapons next to mining barges loaded with explosives. Every human colony, every settlement, every world had sent someone to this final battle. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet," reported Communications Officer Park. "So, it's the Zelethi High Council. Put them through." The familiar, emotionless voice filled the bridge, but this time Minnow could hear something different, underneath fear. "Human fleet, we acknowledge there have been miscalculations in our previous interactions. We propose immediate cessation of hostilities and are prepared to offer substantial reparations for any damages incurred during our research operations." Minnow looked out at the crystalline cities covering the Zelethi homeworld below. Beautiful. Spires reached toward the sky, their surfaces reflecting the light of the system's twin suns. Millions of aliens lived down there, going about their daily lives, unaware that their government had started a war by treating humans like laboratory animals. "This is Admiral Minnow of the United Earth Fleet." He broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring both fleets could hear. "For months, you took our people from their homes. You destroyed our world. You treated us like animals because we showed emotion. You said our anger was just chemicals that would fade away." He paused, looking at the tactical display showing every human ship in formation. Farmers and miners stood next to career soldiers. Shop owners and teachers had learned to fire weapons. An entire species had united in fury. "Now you'll learn what human emotion can accomplish when it has a purpose." The bombardment began with surgical precision. These weren't random attacks, meant to cause terror. Every target had been carefully chosen. The research facilities where human prisoners had been held were struck first. The laboratories where aliens had studied emotional responses were next. Government buildings, where the decision to harvest humans had been made, crumbled under focused fire. On the planet's surface, Vexstar stood in his laboratory, watching the destruction through reinforced windows. His research station had been one of the first targets hit. Decades of work on alien biology, including extensive studies on human emotional patterns, disappeared in brilliant explosions. For the first time in his long life, Vexstar felt something he had never experienced before: regret. As another building collapsed nearby, he finally understood what humans had been trying to tell them all along. "The specimens in Block 7 are crying," his assistant reported. The human captives appeared distressed by the sounds of combat. Vexstar looked at the holding cells where 50 humans from New Andong were kept. They pressed against the walls, listening to the explosions outside. Some were crying, others held each other for comfort. These weren't just biological entities. Reacting to stimuli, they were people, terrified for their lives, and probably wondering if rescue would come too late. "Release them," Vexstar said quietly. "Sir, open the cells. Let them go." Above the planet, Admiral Minnow received a priority transmission. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the surface. The aliens are lowering their planetary shields." Minnow frowned. "Trap?" "No, sir. We're also receiving broadcasts on human emergency frequencies. It's our people, the survivors from New Andong and other colonies. They're being released." Captain Ra Choi's voice came through from her landing ship. "Admiral, I can confirm, they're letting our people go. The prisoners are being evacuated from the research facilities." But the bombardment continued. Every facility involved in human experimentation was systematically destroyed. The aliens had been very thorough in their documentation, and humans had been equally thorough in targeting every location mentioned in their records. The Zelathi High Council sent increasingly desperate messages as their government centers burned. "Please, we understand our error. We will return all human specimens. We will provide compensation. We will never again enter human space." Minnow's response was broadcast across the system, too late for negotiations. "You had months to understand, when we tried diplomacy, when we begged you to stop, when we explained that we were people, not animals." In his laboratory, Vexstar watched the last transport carrying human prisoners lift off safely. Through the smoke and flames, he could see human landing craft touching down to collect their people. They had come across the galaxy for this moment, not for conquest or territory, but to bring their family members home. The final transmission from the Zelathi High Council came as their main government complex crumbled. "We understand now. We should have listened to your warnings. We should have recognized your emotional attachments as real bonds, not chemical malfunctions." Admiral Minnow's reply was brief. "Yes, you should have." The bombardment ended as suddenly as it had begun. The human fleet began to withdraw, carrying their rescued people toward home. They left behind a world in ruins, its research infrastructure destroyed, its government humbled. Vexstar stood in the wreckage of his laboratory and finally comprehended what the humans had been trying to teach them. Emotion wasn't a weakness. It was the force that built families, communities, and civilizations. It was what made humans fight impossible odds to protect each other. It was what brought them across the galaxy for justice. The galaxy would remember this day. Never again would a species mistake human feelings for weakness. They had learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their refusal to abandon each other, no matter the cost.